I'd like to welcome everybody to Growing Concerns for July the 17th. Today we're going to be going through a few things. We're lucky to have Mike Rogalewski with us from MAPFRE, and he's going to give us a little bit of a weather update, maybe explain what's been happening and maybe what we can expect for the next little while here. Then I'm going to do a little bit of crops update again, and the majority of the crops update this week is going to be on assessing hail damage and what to look for. I've been getting a lot of calls over the last 2 days and been in quite a few fields, so I thought I'd share some of that information with you, and then do some brief comments regarding disease issues and insect issues we should be watching for the next week anyways. I guess with that, I think we'll maybe jump right into Mike's presentation and a little bit of a weather update. So Linda, if you can let Mike take over.
Okay, Mike, whenever you're ready. There we go. We can see your screen, so you go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Lionel. Good morning, Southwest man. Pretty crazy couple weeks in terms of severe weather for you guys, especially along the Saskatchewan border in that extreme southwest pocket. It happened again, obviously, Saturday with that. It was kind of the worst scenario on Saturday for the Pipestone folks. This first cell was just gathering steam. It was moving at a clip, probably 50, 60 kilometers an hour. It had a really good wind shear up aloft in the atmosphere, and that's kind of the ingredients to make things happen. The storm came across the border around Carlisle right around 5 p.m., which is just after max daytime heating, so things were, all the recipes and all the ingredients were there for a pretty good thunderstorm. It did die out relatively quickly after, about an hour after it entered the province, and quickly dissipated into nothing once it lost its daytime heating. For today, I've got a bunch of climate slides for you. We'll just take a kind of a quick little peek at the growing season so far, and we'll see what's on tap for the next, for the remainder of the growing season, and a bit for what's up next week and this weekend. So I'll get right into it here. Here's how everything looked last year, if everybody recalls. One thing about doing the climate here in Manitoba is that there's so many microclimates all over, and the conditions and growing conditions that occurred in the Northwest one year, it could be the opposite the next year with the Southeast experiencing the same problems that the opposite did. So to try to keep tap on things, it's pretty tough in terms of longer than a 3-4 year span in our memories. But if we take a quick look at the previous year, maybe we can refresh some of that. So this is a percent of normal rainfall for last year, right around this time. Obviously, last year we lost the snow cover in March. This year we didn't lose the snow cover till June in some places. So right away we almost lost, you know, a growing season this year. So this is last year's from April 1st to July 15th, and it really shows you how the Northwest was pounded in the early season and how the Southeast was starting to dry out. Last year in July, basically the tap shut off for the central and eastern areas. So this kind of shows how things were looking right up to that point. Obviously that North Parkland with that close to 200% of normal. It kind of carried on again this year. So we'll go through this year and we'll try to jog the memory there and how everybody dealt with the conditions when this kind of stuff happens. Variability. To take a look at the prairies so far this year, this is April 1st to July 15th. And the reason I'm showing this product, it kind of gives you the whole scope of the prairies this year. And it really differs from last year. Last year, Alberta and southern Saskatchewan or southwest was really dry. And if you take a look at this product right here, this is a percent of average precip right to July 15th. You see that the majority of the southern prairies are well above normal in precip. So this is the first time for me to see this in a while where all areas in the south are generally good or too good for moisture. One note here is that you can see things are starting to dry up in the Interlake and the southeast of the province, Winnipeg northward, and also above Melville is a bit dry also, surprisingly. One thing to note is the excess amount of moisture all along the border, basically, with the states. It's kind of unprecedented. I haven't seen this in a while, and it's expected to continue on in terms of precip for along the border. So lots of contrast from last year. Let's get into the summation charts now for the province, and this is for southern Manitoba from May 1st to July 14th, and it's a percent of normal rainfall. And the first thing that jumps to mind is that Reston area. Luckily, MAPFRE has a weather station at one of the supplier companies, and we caught all those big rainfalls. There's 2, 3 in a row, and the system that came through Saturday, it kind of had a 2-punch system. It was a big supercell leading off and then another one behind, so they got about 40 millimeters in about a half hour, and the winds were up to 85. Obviously, Pipestone, we didn't have a station there, but it was a lot higher, the winds, and we're not quite sure whether or not it was a tornado or not. It's really hard to justify. The people basically have to go on the ground and see things like how much metal is bent around posts and things like that to ascertain if it was or not. I think the bottom line is that was a big supercell. It's what's called an MCC, which is a mesoscale convective complex. And what it basically is just a bunch of thunderstorm cells all grouped together, feeding off each other. And anything can happen in there, especially some of the observations I heard that people saw this big, weird roll cloud jutting out, going a different direction than the rest of the clouds. And that's kind of typical to these big supercells. And it's called a gust front, and it's all the low-level moisture and wind, and it can be up to about 130 Ks for a big supercell. So, you know, even if this doesn't get termed a tornado in Pipestone, gust fronts with 130 K can definitely do some damage. So the word is still out on that. However, you can see by the 262% of normal and Reston that it's basically almost a full growing season of rain. So let's look at the actual numbers for this period as opposed to the percentage, because obviously season to season there's always extremes and variabilities all over. So let's take a peek. Here's the accumulated numbers for rainfall May 1st to July 14th, and you can see it's up to 417 in Reston. That's a lot of precip, and I can look back on the past 3 or 4 years, and a couple of those years they didn't even receive half that for the complete growing season. So it's pretty substantial, the amounts of rain. Obviously Pearson got it too. You can almost visualize by this map how some of the tracks went through. There's a lot missing. A lot of these little isolated thunderstorms we just don't catch, and we hope that they average out throughout the season. So you can see the Interlake up around the 74 to 100 millimeters. So 3 inches is kind of low for them, considering last year it was the opposite end of the spectrum. So basically there's a couple focus areas, one dry, one wet. So I don't think that's anything out of the normal for Manitoba. Let's look at some of the crop indicators here with the weather. And this first chart is the total growing degree days from May 1st to July 14th. And the numbers range from about 500 in the higher elevations all the way up to 871 in the lower Red River Valley. So things are pretty normal in terms of the growing degree days. We really caught up in July and latter part of June. Okay, here's the actual percentage from May 1st to July 14th, and there's no big surprises here. Things have rebounded pretty good since the cold spring. And the one thing to note is that Upper Interlake and the Northwest too are giving good numbers again this year in terms of the amount of growing degree days they've received at the first part of July. So corn heat units is another indicator. It's base 10 degrees. As you can see, the Red River Valley is up around the 13 to 1400. To get the corn off, it goes from 22 to 2400 CHU. So we're basically halfway there. Higher elevations, of course, are a bit lower. Here's the percentage of normal, no surprise here, ranging from 90s. And the one not surprised but highlighted this is the Northwest is, you know, this is year 2 or 3 where I've seen high CHUs. So for those people that are growing long-term crops, could be a good thing. The drought picture down south, we're really concerned about our friends down there in terms of their growing season. They had a really bad year. 2012 was the hottest summer on record for the U.S. This is how everything looked last year at the end of June. As you can see, it was the dry conditions were all the way up into southern Manitoba, you can see, and Alberta. Things were looking okay at this point last year, but as everybody recalls, the tap basically shut off in July onwards for the people down south, so things got worse. But I wanted to show everybody to show the contrast of this year and last year. And here's this year. Look at all the retraction. It's except for a little spot in Minnesota, it's basically off of Manitoba, southern Manitoba. This is good news. Everything's retracting. The Midwest has really been alleviated. There's a lot more moisture, Gulf of Mexico moisture coming up to Canada, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but this is what we were watching last year to see how the Midwest was in terms of convective weather, and you can see last year it was a bad year in terms of moisture. So this year is a lot different. There's a retraction. You can see it all through the Midwest. So these are all these little indices that we take a look at to go, hey, we might be okay this year in terms of lack of moisture. Here's the U.S. seasonal drought outlook, and this takes us to the end of September, and this is really good news for the people in the Midwest. And if you notice, North Dakota is basically going to be problem-free in terms of the drought outlook sometime in July. So you can see all the retraction all through the Kansas, all through the Midwest. Those are good news stories. Now, some of the climate projections that we're seeing right now, this is Environment Canada for the remainder of the growing season this year, July, August, and September. And this is a probability of precip map. And you can see there's no indication of above or below normal for our region. However, you can see out in Alberta, they say higher than normal precip for the remainder of the period. So we'll keep an eye on that. Here's the American product for the same time period for July, August, September. And it's matching basically what the Canadians are saying, where there's no real indication of above or below normal. So considering some of our regions are well above normal, perhaps that'll even out. So for the people that have lots of moisture, this is a good sign. If one thing to notice about these products, that the Americans differ from the Canadians, where they think it's going to be below normal in western Saskatchewan and southern Alberta. So big confliction, not sure why, but at the end of the month when the next issue of the models comes through, hopefully that'll iron itself out. In terms of global circulation and all these factors that influence our climate, everything down south in the southwestern Pacific is neutral right now, i.e. there's no real indication of a La Nina or El Nino coming, so things are basically stable on the big system fronts, which is good news. I'll kind of jump to right now weather and see what's going on here. This is a surface analysis. It's an isobaric analysis which matches up equal lines of pressure on the surface. Now what I want to show you is that big L that's in Hudson Bay. This is a pretty strong low, and these are the kind of systems, and I wanted to show everybody this because this is the kind of low pressure semi-permanent situation that draws all this moisture-laden air up from the Gulf of Mexico. Low pressure is basically a spinning top, and it draws all the surface warm air and it pushes it aloft basically like a toilet backwards. And whenever this happens, it's just like a vacuum for the Gulf of Mexico and sucking everything up. And in turn, we get all this weather and convective weather. Obviously, when you've got cold air, Arctic air bashing into warm air that's being drawn up aloft, you're going to get thunderstorms. And I think we kind of forecasted this was going to be a normal year in terms of convective weather or thunderstorm weather, and it sure has. Last year we didn't have one, and and we kind of saw why, because things were messed up in the southwestern Pacific. It was dry all the way up through the Midwest, and in turn that's what happened to us. So this year, this is part of the reason. These lows that are whipping around Hudson Bay, when they come up and form and sit over Hudson Bay for an extended period of time because they're blocked by another forward system, then you just get this letching of the warm air and it's drawing right up to us. So this is part of the reason why we're getting a pretty active convective season. It's due to this semi-permanent low that's in Hudson Bay that just seems to want to stick around for a week or two. And what's happened in the last 2 or 3 days for you guys in the Southwest as there's been successive waves of cold fronts coming down from the western side of that low. The air moves counterclockwise around the low, so if you can visualize those circles, it's following along those circles, and obviously when it gets to the western edge of the low, it's drawing down cold air from the Arctic. So that's bashing into this warm air, and it's giving, we just happen to be right in the middle of it, so it's just the way it is. I think there's more to come for the next couple weeks of this type of weather. I don't think it's over. I don't think we'll see like we saw last year with everything shutting off in July. Let's take a look at the next day or so. We got a system coming through. It's hard to believe. You can see the big H in southeastern Saskatchewan. The problem is here is there's a big low way to the south. All right, so you can see that red hash mark. That's cloud right along the border. So there's forecasted thunderstorms all the way along this instability. So I don't think you guys in the southwest are going to get off anytime in the next couple of days. They are more random in terms of these thunderstorms as they build, but as you can see by just this map, this bash is just going to continue for the next couple of days. So this period here this brings us to, sorry, let me just get this thing down here. This brings us to tonight, sorry. So this is the things that tonight, the high's moving out quickly. Oh. Okay, here's the Canadian models. This one here takes us out to Friday night, and it should encompass the whole low that's coming through Idaho later on today. The yellow field's about 15 millimeters. The green is 10. So this is a cumulative all the way to tomorrow night. So this will take account for all the showers that we'll see in starting tomorrow and Friday. Canadian model. Here's the American counterpart for the same time period, and the green's about 1/4 inch, so not much diversion in terms of the America model, basically 15 to 20 millimeters in the next 2 days. I'll move things out a bit and take us to precip accumulation, and it takes us to next Friday. So after the showers we receive tomorrow and Friday for you guys in the southwest, there's not that much more. This yellow is about the inch mark. You can see that little red area about the 40 there. So things are going to quiet down a bit after the weekend, but there's still chances of showers all the way throughout. And here's the American, same thing. That's the light blue is about 1.25 inches, so they have basically around the same amount forecasted out till next Friday. Here's the longer term. This takes us all the way to the 2nd of August. And as you can see by this accumulation, except for these next couple, out till next week, there's not really that much precipitation for the 2 weeks forecasted after that. So we'll keep an eye on that. I don't know. There's that big red blob out in Minnesota, and that could vary around. So that's about all I have, unless anybody's got any questions. I just wanted to show you where all our stations are right now for the MAFRE Weather Network combined with Environment Canada. We got some pretty good coverage, but you can see in some of your areas, especially northwest of Verdon, we need to put a couple more stations. But I just wanted to show everybody that's the kind of the coverage we have in southern Manitoba to produce some of those maps. So that's all I have. Thanks for listening.
Okay, great, Mike. I got a question for you. You mentioned with that low up in Hudson Bay, what is that going to do temperature-wise? Are we going to see warmer temperatures, or are we going to be seeing cooler temperatures?
Well, see, the thing about that, Lionel, is it's so far off, and that air that's being drawn from the Arctic, it gets a lot of time to modify, right? So as it blows over, it warms up slightly, but I think the point is here is that the air's dry when it comes down. So it's not really going to change the temperature because it's kind of going to be negated by daytime heating. So although the dew points are going to lower for the next day or so, it's going to increase again after the next low comes through on Friday. So I don't think
temperatures are going to be fairly. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we're still in the mid to high 20s.
Okay. Good. Any other questions for Mike, Linda?
No, I don't have any questions at this time, Lionel.
Okay, well, thanks, Mike. It was good information and good update as to kind of how or why things happened, and I guess what we can maybe see for the next week. So we're still looking at a little bit of rainfall.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, with that, I'm going to start with a bit of a crop update, and I guess over the last week we had the warm, humid conditions early in the week, and we did get the storms that did go through. Rainfall amounts, again, vary depending on where you were, and as Mike mentioned, it's the Hartney Pipestone area that received the major of the brunt of the storm, and a fair bit of damage in most of those areas. Regarding spraying, I guess, and fungicide applications in the southwest here, I would say that the majority of the crops that are out there are past the stage, and so we're going to see an end to fungicide applications, and besides maybe some of the later flax fields. And the wet conditions have definitely been affecting the hay crop, that's for sure. This is a little bit about a map that I've been showing every week, and just to show our growing degree days and then our rainfall, and Mike kind of went through that, so I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on that, but just again that it's a good map so you could locate your area and see where you're sitting as compared to normal. Winter wheat field that Elmer's been keeping us up to date with in the Shoal Lake area, and you can see it's actually doing really well. Crops up that way have improved a fair bit over this last little while, and cereal crops have definitely improved the most, I would say, in the whole Southwest, and we're seeing some really good stands. And this winter wheat crop is definitely proving to be a real good crop. I went back into the previous webinars, and this is what that field looked like early in the spring, when there was a lot of questions regarding whether we should be leaving some crops or not. And as you followed it through to now, it definitely was a crop that was, you know, I guess a good option to leave it, because it definitely did fill in and definitely did stool out well, and it's going to be producing a real good crop. So it's good to see that the crop has definitely made it through well. I'm going to be talking a fair bit about hail for the next little while here, and as you can see, there was some significant hail that fell throughout the entire Southwest, I guess especially south of number 2 highway here in the past week, and we've been getting several calls regarding the storm. We're seeing a lot of crops that were looking really good all of a sudden, you know, not doing as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of the crops and maybe just talk a little bit about how hail is going to affect each of the crops, because some crops it's definitely going to affect a lot worse than others, and some it's not going to affect as much. So I think it's something where again, you got to look at it as a field-by-field basis and make your judgment calls from there. This was a sunflower field I was in over the last couple of days here, and you can see a lot of defoliation on the leaves, a lot of breaking of the stems, and basically what we're seeing is you know, a lot of issues with you know, whether this is going to be a viable crop. Sunflowers can and will tolerate a fair bit of defoliation. I think the biggest thing here is the secondary issues that are going to come into play with the field of sunflowers. Sclerotinia is a fairly major disease issue in the Southwest, and with sunflowers being fairly susceptible to sclerotinia, anytime you get a wound on a plant, you're definitely going to get the possibility for sclerotinia to I guess, get into the plant and cause issues. So I can see where even though the hail damage is severe, we could still see more secondary issues happening in a crop like this. So it's that, you know, it's going to outgrow a lot of these issues, but it's something that we're going to see some secondary problems happening over the next little while. There's just a little comment as to when it's most sensitive to hail damage, and basically when you're in the bud through the flowering stage, because the head is right there, and if you get breakage at that point, you've basically lost your head. And if you lose a lot of leaves during that point, well, that's where the plant is producing its energy to fill that head. But here's a close-up picture of one of the plants, and the plant that's broken like that is not going to produce anything already this year. It's pretty much broken right off. However, some of the plants where it was just a bust in the side or an open wound, still going to go ahead. Even if a lot of the leaves have been knocked off, it's still going to go ahead and produce. It's just that again, the biggest issue with sunflowers is going to be the potential for disease to be an issue. Damage in wheat, well, we've been seeing a fair bit of damage in wheat as well, and it's going to depend again as to how severe the field was hit. Wheat usually tends to be able to take a fair bit more more severe hail than some of the other crops, but you can see in this picture here where you're getting the bending or the breaking of the stem. When that happens, when the head is out already, you're going to basically lose that head, and it's not going to produce anything. A lot of the flag leaf issues, I was getting a lot of calls regarding tearing of the flag leaves and missing flag leaves. The biggest thing with the head filling is, as long as there's green material there for the plant to produce energy to help fill that head. So if your flag leaf is gone but the lower leaves are still there, the plant will continue to grow and continue to fill that head. So the potential for it still filling is good. It's just that when you're losing flag leaves, you're probably going to be losing some heads. The other thing I was seeing in the field is a fair bit of this already, and we might mistake some of that now for wheat stem maggot. But when you got looking at that lower down, this head was hit, or the stem was hit, and this is just drying up that fast already. You can also see in the foreground here, there's a head that's been hit, and basically just half the head is left. Again, basically your production or your yield loss is dictated by what you have left, and you're going to see issues. Here just a side view again of the wheat crop. You've got the breaking of the stems. Anything that's bent over like that is probably not going to produce a head already, but you can definitely see that there's still a lot of heads that didn't make it through, and you can see the tearing of the flag leaves. Those flag leaves are still intact and still going to produce and help that head fill. I've been getting a fair few questions with some producers. As you can see, this one, a lot of the heads are still in their completed flowering, or you can see where the anthers are hanging. And so some of these guys were still wondering about what to do with those crops, if they wanted to still spray those crops. And I guess with that, I guess one of the comments I was making to those producers was that some of the research that has been done lately with some of the fungicide products is it tends to help the crop when it's in stressful conditions to keep growing. And with the damage that we've seen out there, a lot of the crop is in some stress right now. And because of that, maybe the fungicide application wouldn't be a bad idea because it would help that crop keep growing, and by keeping growing, it would maybe move through some of these injuries a little bit better. So again, it's a judgment call on your part. Make sure the crop is deserving of it. Some of the fields are definitely not deserving of it, but if the crop is one similar to this one where there's still a lot of heads and the potential for yield is still there, it might be an option that some producers will be looking at. regarding canola. Canola is probably going to be one of our most forgiving crops with the hail damage, and with that, again, it'll be a field-by-field call. But I know in this field, for example, it's a little bit hard to see, but some of these pods, you can see them hanging straight down. They're basically broken off, and they're just hanging by the thread, so they're not going to fill. Easy to tell that those ones aren't going to make it. There's just a little bit more of a close-up. You can see those pods hanging down from the damage. So those ones aren't going to fill, and you're definitely going to see yield loss there. It's the fields when you go out and they look like this. A lot of producers are saying, well, it's done. Well, canola is a crop that is one that can grow from quite a bit of adversity, and it's seen a lot of it this year already. But when I was out in these fields, you could see in the nodes or wherever the leaf attachments are, you could see actual new growth coming out already, and this would have been 3 to 4 days after the storm went through, and it was starting to regrow already. So it's a good thing. Again, canola will do good. The biggest thing with this one is we're going to be delayed in maturity, so we're going to need a longer fall. Otherwise, frost might be an issue. And the other thing is we do have a situation now where you might have you have injury to the plant, and when you have injury to the plant, issues like black leg could be a problem. And later on with Sclerotinia, as this plant starts to flower again and go through the growing process. So again, just keep an eye on those fields. Regarding Sclerotinia and an application of a fungicide, I guess it's a judgment call, but with the lateness of the crop and with some of the damage that has been done, probably, something that's not going to be overly advisable, that's for sure. Here's another canola crop. This crop was in full bloom, and when you see this kind of damage, you're pretty much writing a field like this off. It's pretty hard for a crop to come back from that. There's going to be some, regrowth in some areas, but the majority of that crop is not going to make it. As you can see, there was already starting the stems are starting to dry up, and basically not a whole bunch there. And then when we're seeing some of the situations in the Hartney area that look like this, where it looked like it was taken for silage, again, those crops are done and looking for next year. I did get been getting some questions regarding, what to do with some of those fields, and I guess, if producers were thinking of growing winter wheat, this could be an option like we had in 2011 when we did have the wet conditions and we were able to get on the fields later on. Maybe the potential for sowing winter wheat would be good in those fields, because we would have be able to be planting at the correct timing. Peas are going to be one that are going to be affected fairly bad by hail. You can see from this shot that a lot of the pods have taken some pretty good hits, and the plants are standing not too bad, but when you look at the close-up of some of the pods, you definitely see the damage has been done. Pods broken right open, pods that have been bruised on the outside. And a lot of guys will wonder, well, what's, I got the bruise on the outside, so is that going to, what's that going to do to the peas inside the pod? And, you see the breaking there and the heavy damage. And this one here where it shows that the pod actually split open from the hit. Well, when you get those kind of issues happening, this is what's starting to show up already. So you're seeing, of the 4 peas that were in that pod, 2 of them are pretty much done already. So, we're looking at significant yield loss on those pods. And, when you go back to this one here where the pod is already cracked and opening, something like that's probably going to shell up by the time we get close to harvest. So damage on peas is going to be fairly severe. And so, again, it'll be something that we'll need to be watching for. Been getting a fair few phone calls regarding corn. Corn is another crop similar to sunflowers. It can do a fair bit of, it can take a fair bit of defoliation and still produce. I guess when they're broken off like this picture showing, we're probably not going to see a lot of those ones make it, because when you cut those plants open, a lot of the tassel and everything was right up in the stem already. So when they're broken over, they're basically not going to develop anything. I guess, and here's just a close-up of those ones. You can see how many hits those plants were taking when the storm was going through. Field like this, however, where the plants are all fairly much standing, and all you got is a lot of the leaf that has been damaged. When you get looking out in these fields, we were actually seeing new leaves starting to come out through the top. This field would have been probably in the 8-leaf stage, in that range, and we were seeing new leaves coming out. So when you go out there, if you can cut the stem open, you can actually see how well the plant is doing. And but we were seeing new leaves coming, and I would expect in a couple of days these fields are going to start looking a lot different than what they do right now. Soybeans, the soybean crop was doing really good in the area, and the crops that didn't get affected by the hail are still doing really good. We're seeing them advancing really well. They're handling the moisture super, and this is just a picture of one of the soybean crops that didn't see any hail, and you can see it's definitely filled in already, and it's probably 2.5 to 3 feet tall already. This is one of the fields close by that did get hit by hail, so you can see there's a lot of breakage in the stems, a lot of leaf loss. You could see also that where right in this area here, we're seeing where flowering was starting. Basically, you lost most of the plant. And I think I got a close-up of that coming up here. This is one of a field that didn't get hit, and you can see a lot of flowering happening on the soybeans already. So, real good thing to see it flowering. And yeah, here's the close-up of that one, and you can definitely see where the flower is still there, but it's got no growth above it. And what we're seeing, we're seeing some side growth starting to happen on these plants as well. So, soybeans are probably going to grow through this as well. It's just it definitely hit it at a bad time. When you're seeing flowering like we've seen on this slide, and when you lose a bunch of that, you're definitely going to be affected by yield, as well as affected by the maturity-wise of the beans, because now basically you're going to be starting from flowering again. And like I mentioned, here's another picture of one where the main stem got broken off. You can see the alternate stems are growing, and and flowering. So still producing, still going to grow. It's just I guess the biggest issue with it is going to be time. And then just another close-up of a hit plant. So I guess regarding the hail, if you're in an area that received a bunch of hail, or you have a bunch of producers that are making a lot of phone calls or calling you regarding the hail, I think the biggest thing right now is each field is going to be different. I think some fields are going to be an easy call, like some of the canola crops that were totally gone, or some of the corn crops and sunflower crops that are broken right off and done. There are going to be some fields that are going to be hard to judge, and some of the cereal crops, it almost would pay to wait for a week or so before a guy made a big, huge judgment call on them, just to see what actually is happening to some of those ones, because some of the lower hits and the lower stem hits, we might start seeing some of the effects of them in a week to 10 days, as compared to you look at a canola crop where we were out in 3-4 days after the problem, and we were seeing regrowth happening already. On beans, we're seeing the plants still growing, so we know those plants are probably going to make it, and there's still going to be something there. So again, it's something that's going to be a judgment call on a field-to-field basis. Not going to talk too much more about hail. I'm going to go over to just quickly talk a bit about some of the disease issues, and just to mention that right now, I guess any of the fungicide applications that are occurring are probably going to be basically left just to some of the flax fields that are out there that were sown a little bit later, and producers are going with headline on that to control pasmo. And it's just something that has proven to be beneficial to apply, and has definitely shown the yield increase. So basically the timing is 7 to 10 days after you see first flower, and that's always a judgment call as to when the first flower emerged. So if you anywhere from 5 to 10 days is probably your window, and then again depending on, I guess, how severe you think the issues are, but most producers are just doing one application. Regarding fusarium, I guess we did see a fair bit of moisture again over the last little while. Humidity is high. Our level is in a moderate range. This morning when I was driving in, we've seen fog that was pretty heavy fog, and so conditions are perfect for crop canopies are staying wet. We have heavy crops, so I guess the risk is there now, potential is there. I think the biggest thing is most of the cereal crop out there is probably past the stage where if you sprayed at the right timing, and when the possibility for fusarium to be an issue, I think we're kind of getting past that stage already. So I guess if it's there, it's there. The big thing right now that we can use this map for too would be leaf diseases, because we can see a fair bit of septoria and tan spot showing up with the conditions we have out there right now. And that was just a picture of this morning when I was driving in. Just you look at the field, you could definitely see the fog over the field in the morning. So high moisture conditions. Talk a little bit about, we talked a little bit last week about some chemical issues, and Elmer is still dealing with some issues with some spray issues in his area, and basically what we're seeing is group 2 issues with spraying, and the suspect is that there was sprayed, in the warmer, humid conditions in June, and we maybe got a bit of an inversion because we're seeing, or he's seeing it in several fields in the area, and basically a good, telltale symptom of it is the multiple growths out of one area of the plant, and that's kind of what this is showing right here when you look at the center of the plant there. So he mentioned that a bit last week, and I guess he just ran into a few more fields this week. Bit of an insect update. It's time to start scouting for Bertha armyworm larvae. We've got the canolas in pretty much in the right stage, where if we're going to see some early issues with Bertha, it's the larvae should soon be out there. So I threw in a couple pictures of larvae. They'll probably be even a little bit smaller than these pictures when you first go to see them at this time, especially. Best time to look for them would, I always say, would be in the evenings when it's a little bit cooler, because they tend to be up and feeding at that time of day. If you are looking for them during the heat of the day, they're probably on the ground under, fallen leaves, and trying to keep cool close to the soil surface. When you look at the Bertha armyworm monitoring traps, we've had some higher counts in the Minnedosa, Wawanesa, and Killarney areas. Those were the the Wawanesa, Killarney areas were hotspots last year, and so again, just for guys in those areas, or if you're working with producers in those areas, should be definitely watching for or starting to check fields for Bertha armyworm. And diamondback moth, those numbers haven't been as high, and haven't heard of too many reports so far, but figured I'd put a picture of the larvae, and again, just maybe a few comments as to how to check for them. While you're in the canola crop looking for the Bertha, you should be also monitoring for the diamondback. Check under the leaves of the lower canopy. When you touch this guy, or turn the leaf over or shake the leaf, a lot of times what he'll do is he'll drop a string and kind of dangle dangle off it, and that's kind of their way of getting away, I guess, from predators. Once they feel the situations have kind of cleared up, they'll work their way back up the string and back onto the plant again. They're kind of they're a lot different than an armyworm, Bertha armyworm. If you touch a Bertha armyworm, they'll kind of curl up in a ball like a cutworm, as compared to the diamondback moth. He'll kind of jump around and almost act like a wireworm sort of thing. So he'll kind of dance around. Best time again for checking for them again would be, when it's cooler and not really in the heat of the day. And again, they're a lot smaller larvae than the Bertha armyworm. Haven't heard of too many reports of diamondback issues yet, or high counts in the traps. So, but I guess when you're out in the field checking for Bertha, you might as well be checking for that. And timing is pretty much right to start looking for them. Later on in their stages, and with the diamondback moth, it'll probably go through, or it has the possibility of going through more than one generation in your field. So if you see something like this in the field with a netting or a cocoon around it, this is one that's gone through one generation, and that's going to come out as a moth and lay eggs again. So it has the potential for laying eggs, and those eggs hatching in the field and feeding on, and the larvae feeding on the plants as well. So again, just while you're out in the field checking, if you're seeing these kind of things, you know that they're around. Talked about the chemical issues, and there it is there. That's just that repeated at those last couple slides. Wanted to mention that the Canola Council is going to be having a disease scouting clinic. I mentioned this last week, but I thought I'd throw it in again. It's going to be in Portage at the CMCDC, and it's on July the 30th. If you're interested in going out and scouting for disease in canola, it'll be prime time to be looking for blackleg issues, sclerotinia issues, noticing diseases when they're fairly young, picking them out on leaves, and before they work their way onto stems, and going through those identifications. So it'd be a good registrar, a good meeting to go to. If you're interested in going, registrations, they would like you to register because they are going to be serving a meal. They're also going to be having Jim Bissell there, and he's going to be talking regarding combine seed losses. So basically go through ways of for producers to set combines, and different areas where you can look, where you might be seeing losses in yield at harvest time. So kind of a good reminder, or kind of a key startup for getting ready for harvest here. I guess before I go to the end of the webinar for today, I'll ask Linda if there's any questions.
No questions at this time, Lionel.
Okay. Well, if you're viewing this on the recorded webinar, and we'll be applying for CCA credits, we just need you to write up a report and send it to us in the office here, and the information for our email addresses are there, and our phone numbers are there, and preferably send it to Linda Rickman, as she's the one that's getting the credits for you guys. And the MAPRE FBA is again in the Southwest and South Parkland area, and I guess Elmer is going to be spending a little bit more time out of the Minnedosa area as the Shoal Lake office is closed. So, but his number stayed the same. So, again, if you got questions or have ideas or things we should be talking about regarding the webinars, please get a hold of us, and we'll go from there. I guess with that, that'll end the webinar for today.